Try and leave this world a little bit better than you found it. Who here has heard this quote at some point in their life? I thought so. A quick Google search will tell you that that quote is attributed to Lord Robert Baden-Powell. Now, if you don't know who he is, that's okay. I didn't either. We'll get to him later on. With a statement so profound, I doubt that he was the first one to say it, and I can guarantee that I'm not going to be the last one to bring it up. Today's theme is inspiring change, and I think that this quote fits in quite nicely. But the problem with statements like this is that they are easy to say, but they're hard to do. So where do we begin? Well, I think that we start with our kids. I'm a mom of 3. 2 of them are twins, 2 girls and 1 boy. And so pretty much it's a circus at my house 24/7. I mean, after long days of car lines, diapers, doctor's appointments, and sporting events, dishes and laundry are at the bottom of my to-do list. And if you don't believe me, you can ask my husband, who is sitting right here. He will totally validate that for you. But what is not at the bottom of my to-do list is raising compassionate children. The other day, I read a news story about a boy who was experiencing bullying so intensely at school that he ended up taking his own life. He was 12 years old. 12. So I know we can't keep our kids in a bubble, although sometimes I wish that I could with twin 2-year-olds. But what we can do is we can choose to raise our kids with compassion. The world is a drastically different place than the one that I grew up in. I didn't have a cell phone until I was in high school. Meanwhile, my 7-year-old daughter has a cell phone. And technology, whether we like it or not, is here to stay. That's something that we can't control. We all know what the golden rule is. Treat other people the way you would want to be treated. However, I think it's equally important, if not more important, to treat other people the way they would want to be treated. In 2014, the Making Caring Common project out of Harvard surveyed over 10,000 middle and high school students across the country, asking them what they thought their parents cared about most as far as values go. About 80% of those students said that they thought their parents cared about achievement and happiness more than caring for other people. So I challenge all of us here today, myself included, to redefine the words achievement and happiness. Who's to say that being a caring, community-driven, compassionate person isn't going to lead to a happy life? I would argue that a caring child who grows into a caring adult will be happier than one who is only concerned with recognition and accolades. Like most things, this starts at home, and I don't have all the answers. However, I do know how to ask the hard questions. Am I spending enough time with my 7-year-old? Will my twins ever stop pinching each other? What do I do after a long day of Zoom calls and hearing mama over and over again? And when I blow up because of those things and explode on my children, how do I unpack that with them so that they know that my behavior wasn't acceptable and that I'm sorry and it wasn't their fault? If we want to raise compassionate children, we have to be compassionate ourselves. How are we talking to ourselves? How are we talking to our partners? Kids see everything, so they know what you're saying, they know what you're doing. And once again, it comes down to us. If we want to raise a generation of kind and compassionate kids, like in the words of Gandhi, we need to be the change that we wish to see. So the world is cruel, but our kids don't have to be. I have 3 rules right now that I use to raise my kids in what I hope is in a compassionate fashion. And I would say if you ask me next year, I'll have 3 more. First is your child is not an extension of you. They are their own person, so treat them that way. Giving kids agency over themselves shows them that you care, that you respect them, and you respect their boundaries. And in turn, hopefully, they will grow up into adults who respect other people's boundaries. Second is always apologize. Sometimes you might think that what your child's upset about is silly, but children's feelings shouldn't be invalidated just because they're children. apologize anyway, because you're setting the tone for the kind of treatment that they are going to accept later on in life and the kind of treatment that they're going to give to other people. And then lastly, ask them questions. Kids need direct and specific questions to answer. If you ask them something like, "Hi honey, how was your day at school?" you're probably going to get met with something vague like, "Oh, it was okay," or "It was fine." And that's not what we want. So I try to ask specific questions like, who did you sit with at lunch? What did you play during recess? And what did you do for gym class? This is where I get the juicy details, and you probably will too. This is how I found out that my 7-year-old was proposed to by her best friend and childhood crush. They're having a dinosaur-themed wedding. It's happening in June, and you're all invited. But on a more serious note, this is when I learn how she's interacting with her classmates, how they're interacting with each other, and while it's a lot of first grade drama sometimes, the things that kids fight about. But I don't want her or her classmates to be in the position that that 12-year-old boy was in. So I am going to leave you with a quote from Juliette Gordon-Low, but before I do, let's get back to Lord Robert Baden-Powell. He was a British general who's credited with starting the Scouting movement, which then led to the creation of the Boy Scouts here in the United States. Juliette Gordon-Low just so happens to be credited with starting the Girl Scouts of America. I hope we can take all of the wisdom in this quote, apply it to our children, the ones that we're raising, the ones that we might have in the future, and the ones that aren't technically ours, but because it does take a village, we're looking out for them too. The work of today is the history of tomorrow, and we are its makers. Thank you.